one thing I think is that we have to make sure that we are validating our children so that they are able to validate themselves and just take the noise out of what other people are saying. Because we have to make sure and instill in our children that they must love themselves first and know who they are first. And then, if someone else tries to dictate anything else, you can just kick that right on out.
Welcome to Unpacked Culture Chronicles. I'm your host, Danielle Marshall, and today I'm joined by a powerhouse of wisdom and lived experiences, Venus Ray. With over 30 years in healthcare leadership and a deep commitment to person-centered care, Venus has worked across home and community-based services, long-term care, and advocacy for inclusive support systems. She's also a published author and the executive director of LDR Solutions Group, where she helps organizations grow through strategy, compliance, and visibility. Raised in Southeast DC and shaped by a multicultural family, Venus brings a perspective rooted in compassion, confidence, and real talk. In this episode, we'll explore how curiosity, humility, and dignity shape how we lead, live, and listen, both at home and at work. Let's dive in. Welcome to the podcast today, Venus.
Thank you, Danielle. I absolutely am so grateful and thankful to be here. And let me tell you, I just want to say how very proud I am of you. You are doing amazing things, and I want you to keep that excellence shining.
Oh, Venus, thank you so much. As I'm sitting here, and I might be blushing a little bit right now, but I very much appreciate you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I would love for you maybe to introduce yourself in your own words to listeners. Like, what is something like you're proud of? Tell us about your background.
Sure. Hello, everyone. I am Venus Ray, and I am the executive director of LDR Solutions Group. We specialize in business strategy, compliance, grant writing, and branding. I'm also the author of Becoming Unstoppable, Confidence Without Apology, and the Ultimate Grant Readiness Playbook for Nonprofits. One thing that I just love, I've been in leadership both in nonprofit and for-profit for 30 years. And I consider myself to be a visionary leader because I'm always looking for innovative solutions through best practices. I also sit on the board of directors for Better Than Yesterday Mentoring, which teaches financial literacy to our youth. And that's so very important during this time. And that was founded by Diamond Frazier. She's a lovely person. Always in business, my goal is to create an environment of collaboration, innovation, and continuous improvement that inspires excellence at all levels, no matter what level it is.
Wow.
So that's a little bit about me.
Thanks for that, Venus. And I know we're going to dive a little bit into more of those sort of aspects of your life and your work as we get this conversation flowing.
Yes.
But the first thing that I guess I'm going to ask you about, this season, we've been talking a lot about curiosity. And particularly how it intersects with culture. And so as you think back over your career and your life, what is your interest in curiosity?
Ever since I was a little kid, I've been curious about everything. I am curious about various cultures. That's why I love to travel. I travel constantly because wherever I go, I meet wonderful, lovely people. And they just inspire me because they are they are like unapologetically themselves. And I love that in people. I love it when you are so authentic and you are in it. You are yourself and you're willing to share what it is that you're doing, what you're cooking. I mean, when you go anywhere out of the country, they're so pleasant. And, they're always wanting to show you what they made, what they want to give you. And it's culture to me is everything. It's ingrained in us. It's how we feel about different things, how we approach different aspects and what we feel and what we believe in.
Absolutely. So you have a fellow traveler in me because I love to travel as well. I get so much out of those experiences.
Absolutely.
But I know in past conversations, we've talked about the fact that you come from a multicultural family.
Yes.
How do you, believe that shaped the way that you navigate culture and differences, similarities in your daily life?
You know, honesty mixed with humility. I think that throughout my life, I've learned to speak from my experiences and not just my opinion. I try to use the I statement versus you. And I always ask questions, especially when I sense defensiveness in anyone that is, because I'm, as you said, I'm multicultural. And my goal is never to win a conversation, but to build a bridge. And
Mhm.
sometimes that means being quiet and just letting someone else, feel heard because they deserve it. And, everyone needs to be heard.
Yeah, I think that's such a great place to find yourself, as we just
Absolutely.
consider what all is happening around us right now. So instead of trying to win, right, we're using curiosity here
Yes.
to build those
Yes.
bridges.
Yes.
Mhm.
I mean, because if you're always trying to win something, you're never going to get the different perspective from another person. And so, your perspective may not be the right one and may not be what they need in that time. But listening to their perspective is always beneficial for all parties.
Yeah. And I would love if you could speak a little bit more to that in terms of all parties, because some people feel really strongly about, I need to get my point across, right? And my point is the thing that matters, right? They may be more oriented towards winning, if you will, than actually just being
Yes.
engaged.
I look at things like ability. Like ability is like what you're capable of doing, right? And motivation is determining how well you do it. And but it's the attitude that determines how well you do things. And when your character is centered, you have that maturity to really listen to another person. But if you are not in that headspace where you're listening to someone else, my take on that is that when someone is not willing to listen to a different side, I have a tendency to be quiet just a little bit. Because if you're not going to listen to me, I can't talk when you're talking because we'll never be able to hear one another and we'll never be able to communicate effectively. And that's the whole meaning of, speaking. You having a conversation. You talk, I talk. You listen, I listen, and that's very valuable in any type of relationship, or if you're working anywhere, that it's very important to get both perspectives.
Yeah. I appreciate that, because how do we derive meaning from any interaction if we didn't actually hear what was said?
Right. The thing of it is that don't internalize someone else's fear on you. Just you I would tell everyone to just love your whole self and build a support system that reflects your truth. You know, y- just because I'm saying something doesn't necessarily mean you are in agreement with that. But it's mine,
Yeah.
and I have to own that.
100%. So I love this. And I'm going to ask you a question that's going to get us into sort of the complexity of life now.
Uh-oh.
So as we're talking about like holding this space, honoring your truth, but also listening to other people. My next question is more about like when we're thinking about these conversations that we might have around race, around family history. These things can be very complicated, and they can also be emotional for folks. And I'm curious what you have developed in terms of strategies that help you engage in these discussions in a way that really fosters understanding rather than division. So I know you talked a little bit about that, but like now we're going to contextualize this around race, family dynamics. What happens for you when you're engaging in these conversations?
Well, first of all, you have to treat everyone with respect, right? Dignity means that I don't I don't get the opportunity to dehumanize you, and you don't get the opportunity to dehumanize me. We all are not going to agree on everything, right? We'll disagree quite often, but it's how we disagree that will bring in that pivotal point of, the anger or that. So you got to get into this mindset that help you navigate everything from the workplace conflicts to family debates. You have to validate a person's feeling. And when you validate someone else, that has a tendency to calm them down a little bit.
Mhm.
because they have this feeling that you are listening to them. And that's important, and people need that. They need to know and understand that you are listening to them, you are validating what they're saying, and although you may not agree with it, you respect it.
Yes, yes. I feel like I keep talking about this theme, right, of validating people, and I have some strategies of my own that I use, but I wonder like what that looks like in practice for you.
Oh, strategy. I am an active listener. And the way that my strategies come about is that I have to get down to the root cause of exactly what it is that we're talking about. Once you get down to the root cause, then you can come up with the strategies. And you might come up with them on the fly, but you can't come up with a strategy without really knowing exactly what the person is going after and the root cause of the issue that's coming about.
Yeah. So I appreciate that. Like I'm a paraphraser, right? Like I will
Yes.
often listen and I'm like, it sounds like what you said is, XYZ.
Right.
But I'm also appreciating now that you've said like sometimes you have to come up with the strategies on the fly. Like you could prepare, but if you're listening, you just don't know what that other person's gonna say.
Right. Well, at the end of the day, you're not there to prove them wrong. You're just being you, you know? And again, we have two different perspectives on the conversation that we're having. And to me, I think that's healthy when you having different perspectives on various issues.
Yeah, and I think that is a very generous answer because some people do feel like right now they're positioned to do exactly that. They want to prove someone wrong. They want to be right in every instance. But what I'm hearing you say is, I'm just here to be a part of the conversation.
Right, right. I mean, what is the purpose of me always wanting to be right? I'm not perfect. So, of course, I'm going to make mistakes. And of course, I may not understand exactly what it is that you are speaking about now, but maybe later on that either that day or the next day or so, maybe it hit me and I'll be like, oh, you know what? This was a really good insight to what you were saying,
Hmm.
you
Yeah,
know?
I love
And
those moments when those happen,
yes,
right? And
yes.
you're out walking the dog, not even paying attention, and all of a sudden something comes into your awareness.
That's right. But it also gives you an opportunity to go back to that person and to just go back to the conversation again, you know? And when you're going back to that conversation again, it may be completely different.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Venus, because I think some of the most meaningful interactions I've had of recent is when someone simply says, like, hey, you mentioned this, or we talked about this thing, and I've been reflecting on it.
Yes.
Real
Yes.
time, as fast as our brains process, like there's sometimes we can't be that sharp in the moment, or it's new information. And so when we step away for a second, that dawning on you of like these new ideas, concepts, it really becomes clearer. I love that.
Absolutely. But it's powerful. It's a powerful statement when you can really go back to the person and say, "Hey, maybe I need to listen to this again because perhaps I didn't get the full understanding the first time, but I went back, I thought about it. Let's discuss it again."
Hmm. Yeah. And I think that really does demonstrate the active listening because if we are fully present and in the
Yes.
conversation, we hear things that we can then recall later on to be able to say, hey, this is what I was thinking about that you shared.
Absolutely. It's called emotional intelligence.
Yeah. How about that? So let me pivot the conversation a little bit. You had mentioned to me once that human dignity should be at the center of how we treat people. And so again, I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that. I'd love for you to elaborate.
Well, human dignity to me is just being able to just sit and really listen to the person and not judge, because we're not here to judge anyone. We're here to try and live in a cohesive manner where we're respecting everyone. And what's the saying? Love everyone, love all people. And when you can't listen, when you can't sit back and listen to a person, you're never going to get that deep conversation that is going to be valuable to your soul. And when your soul is being fed by, human respect and human dignity and love and decency, I think we move forward as a people.
Mm, yeah. I'm just sort of sitting with that comment. I tend to agree with you just when I think about my approach to the world. And I also know that we're living in a time period where there's tension, there's a lot of misunderstanding. And so I'm trying to
Yes.
hold like two truths at the same time, and wondering how you might navigate like this human dignity when the person sitting next to you, they might say some things that you're just like, you can't totally get behind.
Oh, yes. Like my mama used to say, if you don't have anything positive to say, just don't say anything. So, so, so I stick to that logic. If I can't contribute to the conversation, I have a tendency to just mind my business.
Yeah. Right. And sometimes that might be the right strategy at times, is to
Yes.
zip it up for just a second.
Listen, silence is golden. Silence is golden in certain stances. It is golden.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about culture and identity. And I know you grew up in Southeast DC. And people often made assumptions about you based on appearance or otherwise. How did you, again, in these moments, like push back against these narratives and stay confident?
I have to attribute that to my parents because both my mother and father always informed me that, listen, the only truth that you have to live in is your own. And before you can respect anyone else, you have to respect yourself. So, I was this girl with all of this curly hair, these light eyes, and I was mistaken for every nationality in the world. And to me, I thought it was funny because my family, although it's multicultural, Italian, Black, you got Indian, and I have a rainbow for a family. I have a brother-in-law who's white, who's Black. I have another brother-in-law who's Iranian. I have another one who was Spanish, and I have another one who was Indian. So, it I have a rainbow. My best friend is Asian, she's Vietnamese. And to me, I think that when you sort of show a person who you are versus their assumption of you, because when you show someone who you are, they have the tendency to say, oh, well, wait a minute, maybe I jumped to a conclusion that I should not have jumped to. And to me, I always treated everyone with love, respect, and appreciation for their thoughts. Now, if they got it wrong about me, I would say, you know what, I heard what you said, but let me correct you on something. This is my family history. This is where I come from. And, these are the things that I believe in and that I feel. Sometimes it went over well. And sometimes you got that side eye, like, what is she talking about? But, as teenagers and as children, we always, they think differently,
Hmm.
and they have a tendency to react versus thinking because they're kids. That some of them they want to be, oh, I want to be the one that's having everyone laugh at me, or the one that is, oh, let's do this. I've never been the type of person to fall into any of that. I always was level headed because my mom said, why argue, fuss, and fight with people that you're going to be playing with the next second? She had a point because guess what? We would argue as kids, but I'm out there playing. One, two, three, red light, go. You know?
Absolutely. And that translates to the work environment as well, because you sort of
Absolutely.
you get what you get when you walk into an organization, but the idea is
Yes.
that we need to be able to collaborate and work well together in order to get whatever it is done that we're trying to do.
Yes. In the work environment, when you have a disagreement, it is up to leadership to make sure that they have a safe place to discuss what that disagreement is. Being in leadership for a long time, one of the things that I always focused on, and that was, I want to hear both sides. I don't do those triangles because you might talk to one person, you might talk to another person, you get three different stories, right?
Hmm.
But if you bring them in at the same time and discuss it. I always found that that was better because it was always some type of misinterpretation from one to the next. And so when you're coming together, and you're working it out and you're discussing the issue, whatever that issue may be, it is up to us to really sit and listen. And again, I'm going to get back down to the root cause because there is a reason as to why there's a disagreement. So tell me exactly what is that reason so that we can hash it out. And then I don't want you to only come to me with an issue. I also want you to come to me with a solution. Because if you have this issue, somewhere in your mind, you have already calculated a solution or something that you feel or think may work. So bring that to the table. Let us hear it.
Yeah. Oh, I'm having like so many reactions to what you said. One of the things that I frequently tell people is I think human beings are amazing problem solvers, right?
Absolutely.
And we often solve the wrong problem. And it might seem funny as I say that, but like to your
Yes.
point, there's your story, there's my story, there's the truth.
Right. There's always
And
three
so
sides to one story.
that's exactly it. And so if I am not willing to hear your perspective, your understanding of something, right, I can only lean on my own understanding in that moment, which means my solutions are based on my understanding. It does not
Absolutely.
necessarily mean I'm tackling the actual issue. And so, as you were sharing that anecdote around like bringing colleagues together to just say, tell me a little bit more about this, my brain tends to think in questions in general. And so like what I was thinking about is what's your understanding of this situation based on your perspective?
Right. And to Danielle, you also have to you have to be consistent.
Mm,
Consistency and truth is key. You know, if you are a leader, you should always be consistent. You don't favor one person over another. You look at both sides and you should be that consistent person that says, "Listen, okay, I heard your side, I heard your side. Now, let's come together and we're going to come up with a conclusion so that this will not happen again. And if it does happen again, we have some type of mechanism to combat it."
yeah, absolutely. And I know you just mentioned a moment ago that you feel like your parents were really instrumental in sort of shaping your perspectives as a young person, and
Yes.
and now also how that like sort of you live these values out as an adult. And I'm wondering, like, your father instilled a strong sense of integrity and self-worth in you in particular. If I were talking, or you're talking in this case, to other parents or mentors that are focused on young people, I know this is an area you're also passionate about, right? How do you how can we as parents and mentors help young people build a stronger sense of identity, especially when they're facing external pressures?
Well, one thing I think is that we have to make sure that we are validating our children so that they are able to validate themselves and just take the noise out of what other people are saying, because we have to make sure and instill in our children that they must love themselves first and know who they are first, and then if someone else tries to dictate anything else, you can just kick that right on out the window. But, as far as I think that as long as and your children know that they strive to be the very best that they are, they're already winning. You know,
Mhm.
they are enough just being themselves. And I think that that is a very important value to instill in children and also too in adults, because some adults have that sense where they don't feel as though they are enough. And then once you instill that, yes, you are enough just being you because you're human. And I always say that skills can be learned, but your character is a powerful thing because that is innate in you, and that is something that if your character is bad, no one's going to believe anything that you're doing or saying anyway. So, you got to come correct the first time around. Say,
Yeah.
yes, my word is my word, and my word reflects my character, and my character reflects my name.
Mm, yeah. That does feel so important. Like I am raising a teenager right now, and I feel like we are having these conversations, although I don't necessarily call it character with her. It is
Yes,
exactly that. It's like, are
yes,
you staying true to the things that you just said you were going to do? You're gonna,
right,
and I don't care if it's as simple as like I'm gonna reach out to a friend or I'm gonna support someone with a project.
yes.
Are you following through?
Yes, I mean, you have to show your children through your actions. You have to be consistent with your children. You have to be truthful with your children because, sometimes what I found, and particularly with the people that I've come across, and it's that they want to sugarcoat things for the kids, but kids are resilient. They can, be truthful and honest with them, and they can deal with it. They really can take it.
Not only can they deal with a lot, these kids are so much more knowledgeable than I feel like I was at this age. I don't know about you, but they have access to resources we just couldn't
Yes.
even tap into.
Yes, yes. I mean, I'm going to date myself, but back in my day, we didn't have cell phones or anything like that. Our phone was that phone that you have a line to, and you have to put it up to your ear. And if someone was calling and you didn't want to dial in and push that button so that the next person can come in, they would have to call back.
Yeah,
There was no,
absolutely. I'm
yes.
I'm laughing right alongside of you because I can date myself because I remember rotary phones, right? I remember
Oh,
when beepers first came out.
oh yes.
So all of those
Absolutely.
different things. I love
Listen,
it.
we go back to that time. I mean, my Generation X, we've seen everything. We had the little beepers. We've seen everything. So, as a kid, you remember the little cans and the string. You put
Yes.
your head up like this so you can hear each other talk. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, that was our cell phone.
Right. The original cell phone, if you will.
That's right.
Um, as you talk, one of the things that I keep hearing you sort of get back to is this idea of like bridging across difference, right? So
Oh,
obviously this is important to you. And as you're raising children, right? So I'm going to stay on this theme of family
yes,
and kids for a second.
I love it.
And we're teaching our kids in these moments to respect people based on their values,
Yes.
right? What are concrete ways that we can apply that to our interactions?
You know, I'm gonna tell you how it started with my family. When my kids were little, it all started at the dinner table
Okay.
because we would have very valuable conversations at the dinner table. Um, you know, we made sure our kids were exposed to different cultures, different foods, and different ideas because it was very important for me because I wanted my children to love all people, no matter where they came from, no matter what language they spoke, no matter what color their skin was. And I needed to instill that in my kids so that they would love all people, no matter what. You have to like ask people about their stories,
Hmm.
and then show up with curiosity, not critique. Just be curious about what they're doing, how they're doing it, and don't critique anybody because it's not how you do it. That's not it. You're there to learn and get the experience. And when someone challenges your world view, lean into it. Not away, just lean into it and hear exactly what they have to say. And that's where real growth happens, is when you are open to listening and learning different cultures from different people.
Yeah. That does feel really important. Um,
Yes. Absolutely.
when I was gearing up to start this podcast, I was in the series of doing some cultural assessments, the Intercultural Development Inventory, or IDI, for folks who have not heard of it.
Mhm.
And what I found with people is a lot of folks said, hey, you know what? I'm really interested in meeting other people, right? I want to deepen my understanding of culture. I want to engage with them. And I have no idea where to start the conversation.
Oh, wow.
And right, that was my reaction. I'm a talker, right? This is simply what I do. And so to that end, I was like, what do you mean? But I also have to like recognize in this moment, like that is a privilege I hold because I
Yes.
am chatty, right? Like I really
Yes.
do sincerely enjoy people, But for folks that are, and you mentioned your friend a moment ago, right, who's Vietnamese.
Yes. Yes.
That became like a beautiful friendship that has lasted, over these years,
Years.
etc. But like at some point you had to decide, like, this is someone I want to be friends with. I have to learn
Yes.
about them. I want to embrace, things about this individual. I like them.
Yes.
Uh, what does
Absolutely.
that mean for you? Like, again, so like I'm talking to people who are like, I don't even know where to start the conversation. Like, how do we build those network connections, whether they be friends or at work, when we may not have a sense of comfort in talking to people?
Well, you know what? You start with a shared interest and then go deeper. Ask questions. You know, if they bring lunch to work and they want to share, try the food, attend their cultural events. When my friend and I we first met, we met at a dinner party that we were at. And it was just something about it. We just clicked. And I just wanted to know a little bit more about her and about her culture because I always wanted to visit Vietnam. And so she started just telling me about these wonderful things. And, as a kid, how, it took her a different route and she had to come to America because of the turmoil that was going on there. And the conversation just got deep. I celebrate the holidays that your friend is in, and don't be afraid to be the only one in the room. It's okay, just be respectful and open to the different cultures that you're coming up against, because friendships across cultures expand your empathy like nothing else.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, that is where you get into that segment of learning and being open to want to learn.
Hmm.
But if you're not open to learning and to respecting someone else's culture, it's going to be kind of difficult for you to even start that conversation,
Yeah. I do
Yeah.
think you're right about it. Like, there has to be a willingness there. and
Absolutely.
and not having
Absolutely.
it driven by like outside forces, but seriously, I personally want to either engage with this individual or learn more about this community.
Yes.
Like, there has to be something that drives us. And as
Yes.
we head into the warmer months here in the Baltimore area in particular, like, one of the things that I absolutely love about this community is there are so many festivals that happen. And I know this is like many communities are like this, but Baltimore seems to have like a festival happening every weekend, if not two or three.
I know my favorite is the wine festival, the Caribbean Wine Festival.
Okay. So perfect example. But here's the thing, like, I'm challenging not only, my clients on right now, but myself as well. If you think about any given weekend, right, whatever community you live in, there's likely going to be some event. So, like
Oh,
maybe
yes.
it's the Greek festival, there's the Caribbean wine festival, Pride Parade is in town and festivals going on, right? There's all kinds of grounds we can cover. And
Yes.
we generally will tend to go to the same events.
Mm.
Right. And so, like, for me, I'm interrogating that even for myself in this moment, because I'm like, why do you keep showing up to the same events with the same people? You've been there. You understand this already. What
Yes.
stops us from going to something new?
You know what? I think fear of the unknown. If you are not used to it, and if you are when you are stuck in your comfort zone, you can never explore. So once you start getting out of your comfort zone and stop letting fear yap in your ear,
Mm-hmm.
you can go for it. Just do do something different and that scare you to death every day. At least one thing. One thing. And I guarantee you it will get you out of your comfort zone, because you can't grow in your comfort zone. You have to grow outside of your comfort zone. And that's the only way you're going to expand on anything.
Yeah, that's so funny that you say that, because I often will refer back to the fact that I think discomfort is the edge of our learning zone, right? Like,
Yes.
where we need to grow next, that's when we start getting uncomfortable, because it's like,
Oh,
oh, this
yes.
is unfamiliar, or, am I going to say the right thing? Am I wearing the right outfit to this event? Like, what's
Yes.
happening?
Yes.
But the reality is, like, kind of to the point that you're making, like, we can learn so much in these moments where we challenge ourselves. And
Yes.
reasonably, we're still standing at the end of these, the day, the thing you've done, like, you're fine.
Right. Exactly. So, a lot of people, when they feel as though it's like, get out of my comfort zone, absolutely not. But once they get out of it, they'll be like, oh, I'm still here, nothing big, nothing major. But what they may gain more self-determination. you
Mm-hmm.
know they may gain that where they have feared so much to get out of their comfort zone, and when they do get out of it, it's like, hey, I did that. That's an accomplishment.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So let me just ask you this, because we're coming up on the end of our time. Um,
Okay.
and I
Okay.
definitely want to know a little bit more about what is happening in your business. But based on the conversation we had today, like, are there practical tips that you want to leave people with?
The main practical tip that I want to leave anyone with is that always respect yourself and others first and foremost, and put people first. People should always be first. Be when you're making decisions, when you are thinking about different things. Yes, we run companies, we manage companies, we work with, but if you don't take care of your people, they won't take care of you. So, always take care of your people first with dignity and respect and love in your heart, always.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a human first orientation that you have.
Yes,
Uh,
yes,
so, Venus,
absolutely.
tell me a little bit about what is coming up in your business. What are you excited about?
Well, right now it's building clientele, and because I believe that I love writing. So I love grant writing. I love building businesses from the bottom up. Helping organizations just create the tools that they need to ensure that their company is growing, becoming sustainable, and visibility is very important for any small business or nonprofit, because you want to get out there and you want to get known, and so that people will, because if you don't show up, people don't know that you exist, right? So if you put your name out there, that, and you're constantly and you're consistent, the people are going to show up. Put it out there, they will come. It's like that field of, what is that field of baseball. If you build
Oh, if
it,
you build
they
it, they
will
will come.
come.
I can't remember the name of that movie, but I know exactly what you're
Tried. I
talking
just
about.
know that Kevin Costner was in it.
Field of Dreams, I think it was.
Field of Dreams. Yes, that's what it was.
That's funny. You really taking me way back down memory lane today, Venus.
Danielle, we could probably sit and talk all day long, and you know that.
Absolutely. So, for our listeners, if anyone wants to get in contact with you to learn a little bit more again about your work, or just have a connection point, where can they find you?
Oh, absolutely. You can email me at info at lvrsolutionsgroup.com, or you can hook up with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.n.venuslray.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I love that we got to
Oh,
touch a little bit on work and family dynamics,
yes.
and just identity, and all that makes us who we are. So I
Right. But
appreciate you
they go
coming on.
cohesively together, right?
They absolutely, they blend, right? That is the funny thing. Sometimes we want to
Yes.
separate out the different components, but we show up as the entirety of who we are in all situations. We can't just
Right.
piece out what we want to take,
We
and
have to be authentic.
absolutely. So, Venus, thank you so much for the time today. This was a great conversation.
Thank you, Danielle. I'll see you later.
Okay, take care.
Bye-bye.
What a powerful reminder from Venus that listening, truly listening, is a radical act of love, respect, and leadership. I appreciated her grounded wisdom about navigating difference, holding space for hard conversations, and staying anchored in your own truth. Whether you're leading a team, raising kids, or simply trying to show up with more care in your community, there's so much to take from this conversation. As Venus said, when we put people first and lead with dignity, everything else follows. Thank you again to Venus for sharing your story and heart with us. Until next time, be well.